Panelists and debaters, thank you so very much for our debate today. I am quite excited. As Prime Minister, I am very proud to propose today's motion. Governments should heavily restrict advertising for high carbon utilization and high waste consumer goods, e.g. fast fashion, single-use products, and oversized vehicles. Now, allow me to roll out my speech for you first. I will first introduce what government believes this debate is fundamentally about. I will then provide you with my definitions as per words notated in today's motion, and then I will also provide you our weighing mechanism that will validate government's victory today, and then I will provide you with two pieces of positive matter in that governments have a right to restrict businesses and that advertising has led to further indebtedness of the average consumer. Now, allow me to move on to what I believe today's debate is firmly about and what it is not about. Government believes that today's debate is about the rising consumerism in our world, yet through said rising consumerism, there is a notated worsening of the climate crisis. That is what opening government absolutely believes today's debate must be focused around, and that is how opening government will be arguing today. And allow me to touch my definitions. Although there is no listing of this house due to a government being listed, we are considering it the United States. Advertising in this regard is the attempt to solicit business. Restrict in this regard is severely limiting. And due to the definition already laid out, high carbon utilization and high waste consumer goods, e.g. fast fashion, single-use products, and oversized vehicles, that will substantiate that definition. And allow me to move on to our weighing mechanism. Government believes that in order to win today's debate, we must prove through our argumentation that implementation of the resolution leads to further protections for human beings. Our weighing mechanism today and how we will win is that through arguing for today's resolution, we will provide more, protections for human beings overall. And allow me to move on to my first bit of argumentation. And that is that governments have a right to restrict businesses. And so, we recognize and contend in government that businesses do have constitutional rights, a la, First Amendment, freedom to assembly, freedom to petition, freedom to speech. And so considering that then, we also then consider that since it is the federal government who provides these rights to corporations and human beings, the federal government also has a unilateral right to take away free speech in instances where the federal government believes that they are public health concerns. One example of this that we can notate very recently is the severe limitations on tobacco advertising. We have seen that in the past 20 to 30 years within the United States, tobacco advertising has essentially been limited only to the quintessential places where you can purchase tobacco. This is gas stations, this is convenience stores. You do not see advertisements for tobacco on Instagram or on Facebook, mind you. You can only see these in those appropriate areas. Because the federal government has unilaterally said tobacco is I will take your POI in a moment, tobacco is a public health concern, therefore the government has a unilateral right as the federal government to protect American citizens from this public health concern. The impact of which is that, like I already mentioned, tobacco advertising is only relegated to very specific sectors of public society, and the further impact of this, because there is less tobacco advertising, means that we have seen even less smoking related deaths. We have seen a decrease in tobacco production because of the lessened exposure. When you lessen exposure, ultimately you lessen the base through which people are going to be able to be, affected by this. And I will take your POI opposition.
Yeah, so when you said that people aren't advertising or advertising tobacco through social media, and that's that explains why restricting advertising would be effective. How would that be if things like fast fashion, most of its consumption arrives from exposure on social media that is not paid promotion or advertisement?
It may not necessarily be a paid promotion or advertisement. However, the federal government still has a unilateral right to ultimately limit businesses within the context of the United States, if that's where they operate, if they if the American government believes there is a fundamental public health concern, because there is notated usage of single-use plastics, of industrial protocols, which we can all contend are bad for the environment, then the federal government has a unilateral right to step in those cases. Thank you for that POI and allow me to move on. And so again, since there has been lessened smoking advertising, we've seen even lessened or rather decreased amounts of underage smoking. Since this advertising is not overtly in people's face, the purchasing of these products has gone down. So ultimately, when you lessen exposure, you are ultimately lessening the base through which people can then become inundated in said system. And ultimately, if less people purchase these single-use items, then we're going to be seeing even less of this waste in our oceans. We're going to be seeing less of this waste in commercial waste yards. We can all contend how bad the climate crisis is, so ultimately government is just simply trying to avert that catastrophe. And allow me to move on to my second bit of argumentation. And this is that advertising leads to further indebtedness. As I had mentioned, obtrusive advertising left or right means that businesses are attempting to solicit your money. They simply just want your dollar. They do not care about your well-being. They do not care whether or not you feel satisfaction from your product. So ultimately, we have to then consider, since businesses only want your money, we have to then also consider how this has impacted human beings, especially within the past year. This previous holiday season saw that 60% of all purchases within the continental United States were made through credit. Because of the rampant left and right advertising that people will see either through their phone or through the TV, ultimately there is more exposure. There is a further mechanism through where people are going to buy these knickknacks or going to buy, clothes from Shein as a sense of escapism, as a sense of satisfaction within this unfortunately cruel world that we all exist in. Because of this escapism, or rather the attempt to escape the confines of everyday life, this has led to the increase of debt within the United States. As I've already mentioned, the holiday season this past year saw 60% of purchases made on credit. Credit means that this is money people do not fundamentally have. This means that people have ultimately just put themselves into loops of indebtedness where they are more than likely only going to be paying the minimum payment, and we all know minimum payments for a credit card will take you 10 plus years to take. So because this has become a perpetuated cycle where people are attempting to escape everyday life, they end up only instead buying these products as a way to satisfy themselves. Because they do this as a way to satisfy themselves and they put themselves in further debt, ultimately this is a negative for our world. So absolutely your vote must go government today for the implementation. Thank you.